2, 1.
We're coming through, saving the planet from bandits, surprise attack like we didn't plan it. And we're dressing outlandish, cause the villains can't stand it. When we're foiling the plans, I speak a secret language from the hidden ancients, using my secret powers to heal the
Right, what is up, everyone?
Going on?
Just had another sample of our very own Green Lantern jamming on the track there.
Yeah.
Title of that one was Broken Leaves.
Yeah.
I dig it. I'm digging on it.
Thanks. I can't hear it on my end, but I know what it sounds like well enough. Thank you. I appreciate that. I will say that I got to give a great shout out to my buddy the Snow Leopard because we mixed this up in his studio, and without him, this song wouldn't sound nearly as cool as I had imagined it. And we both threw in our own style of music together, and then we even sampled some chihuahuas barking in his backyard, and like because of how well them barking in unison sounded, we just added an echo effect to it in the breakdown, and it sounds like it's out of Crash Bandicoot. It sounds like that clip of the polar that you jump on from Crash Bandicoot. It's
fucking sweet, man. No, I love stuff like that. I love going out of your way to record noises that aren't pre-built into a kit.
Yeah,
that's super cool, man.
Yeah, I've always liked the idea of musicians sampling real life sounds and bringing them into the song, as opposed to trying to exclude them totally. Because bringing natural sounds and unnatural sounds into the mix really helps you kind of connect with the music, I think.
Yeah, totally, man. And also shout out to Snow Leopard because recording music and being a snow leopard, that seems fucking challenging.
Yeah,
and with those paws and
I have to just point out that he had the name Snow Leopard before I ever was given the title Green Lantern. So he was his own his own rogue thing. And then when I met him, I was like, "You want to be in the Justice League?" He's like, "I'll work outside of the Justice League." He didn't want to tie up to any faction too strictly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, man. Some people are gonna. I mean, I will say even fucking Batman got down with the Justice League, but there's some people they wanna operate out on their own. That's cool.
Oh, well, I always kind of saw you as a Batman in terms of mentality. You know what I mean? Where you're just like you got this gruff, grounded mentality. You know what I mean?
I'll take that because out of all the shit I'll talk about DC, I do like fucking Batman. I mean, how can you not? He's such a badass character.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how all the other ones, including GL, can be seen as goofy. I mean, like and their powers are just like immeasurable, and
yeah,
Batman,
well, I always feel that in DC Comics, that's always been my major, essentially my major point against DC is their powers are either like fucking godlike or just boring. Like it's either like it's insane or it's like this guy's can jump like a cat, and it's just it's some bullshit power that's But and you can say it like with Marvel, there are definitely those kinds of characters too, but it's not their main characters, other than Wolverine. Wolverine's kind of like a super-powered, unkillable.
Well, there's a certain things that make me see the whole Marvel and DC thing as a Pepsi and Coke kind of challenge, like which one do you like more? They're totally different, but then at the same time, every time, people on YouTube, such as like Comics Explained, that they'll talk about the similar qualities between these two characters on both ends.
Yeah.
DC.
I like Comics Explained a lot, man. That guy is, major shout out to that channel. I can listen to that shit for hours, dude. I can listen to what would happen if this shit went down. Like, I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Is
I also, oh, go ahead.
Rob, right? Is that guy's name Rob? Am I thinking of the same?
I'm,
Or because there's Comics Explained and there's Comic Historian, right?
no, this is Comics Explained. Yeah, like he's the guy who he'll go through like essentially like my favorite series that he does is How to Kill characters. I love that series. Like just going through each character and what their major weaknesses. Like I love the idea. He pointed out that what's her name, Sue, Invisible Woman, or girl or whatever. How she took out the Juggernaut by just casting a bubble over his head, and it started suffocating him, and he started passing out from suffocation. Or no, it was the Hulk, maybe. I don't know if it was the Juggernaut or the Hulk. I think it might have been the Hulk.
Well, there's that similar kind of ability of like near invulnerability, or Juggernaut. I mean, it's tough to say Juggernaut versus the Hulk, right? Like, who do you think would win in that one?
Right.
But at the same time, I'm pretty sure you're thinking of the Hulk. I might be wrong. There's a few number of times where like Hulk was actually killed.
I could see that. Like, there are definitely characters that I could see taking out the Hulk. But if it was Juggernaut versus the Hulk, from my understanding, the Hulk just gets more powerful the more angry he becomes. So, like, in a battle of pure physicality, I feel like the Hulk almost, like, by default wins, because eventually, like, his power is going to have to spike above his opponent,
Yeah,
it's raw.
There's the thing that Juggernaut is. I mean, isn't he invincible? Like, isn't he unable to die? Like,
right. So to me, it would be something like the Hulk getting so angry and strong that he would just like pick him up and like hurl him through space or something. Like just fling him out into the cosmos.
Yeah, and then he just shuts down. Okay, so one of them would throw the other into space. That's what we can agree upon.
Yeah, I think that's the only way that fight ends. Is someone got to get chucked out into space, and hopefully they're not in the trajectory of the sun, because that would. I think the sun could probably kill Juggernaut, or maybe you just live on the surface of the sun. That would be tight.
All right, so let's kind of gravitate back towards the intro of the second half of our hopefully daily podcasts now.
Yeah, I mean we'll I think that, for right now, definitely daily is achievable, because I'm not working. I'm still trying to get a job and whatnot, but I think as long as, I don't have any steady work, that daily is, at least one episode a day is definitely achievable.
Well, I definitely have some projects to work on day by day in terms of building that planner's box. I'm already halfway done with that, though, so, I mean, I'll finish it by tomorrow, and I'll probably be even more clear up on my schedule until I get more orders in for furniture and such. But going back to introducing the second half of this day, we're going to talk about, we've decided that we're going to divide things between the day and the night in terms of what we talk about in the daytime and what we talk about at night. So at nighttime, we're going to discuss things on the spookier level, things like more of the unknown, the unexplainable, those weird mysteries that give people chills. We'll talk about things.
Yeah. And I think that, I think it's, it's a cool cool direction to take, excuse me, going from in the morning and drinking a pot of coffee and talking about shit, and then going into nighttime and just getting kind of drunk and, smoking a little of that green tobacco and feeling pretty excellent.
Only the freshest.
But hopefully we will be able to obtain that dichotomy between the two. Same people, just different intoxicants, different vibes.
So one thing, there's a couple things I wanted to talk about. Let's see if I can stay on topic a little bit, though. One of the things I wanted to mention that's really kind of freaky to me is, I started driving a lot across Texas right before I found a place to live. Not too long ago, and one thing I started to do was I would just listen to the wackiest things on the radio.
Right.
And one day I was
Now, was this like radio, like listening to the actual like FM or AM radio, or was this like listening to something on your phone?
It's like listening to playlists on YouTube
Okay.
of old radio recordings of old, like, Art Bell, Coast to Coast, things like that.
Cause
Um,
see, I was gonna say like if you were just listening to like AM radio, I was like you're just asking to go crazy because I can't listen to those people fucking talk, dude. As much as I love NPR, god damn, it gets fucking old fast. It really does. Um, but anyways,
I
continue
mean,
with the story.
I like to balance out the mysticism with a lot of solid information. And I like talk shows that can be very informative, but not when it drones on and it never gets exciting. It's all just one straight line of information. It's a great source of information, but you can only handle so much at a time. And I do like that there were like musical intervals on that. There were certain points of that of listening to NPR that I actually did appreciate. But at the same time, I'd rather listen to Joe Rogan talk to Neil deGrasse Tyson, like I said in our last episode. Like that seems like I like it. Like two different guys on two different portions of the spectrum, but they also like to have grandiose conversations about the what ifs and the far out science.
You know what I will say I really like about Joe Rogan, man, is that he invites guests on his show that he doesn't necessarily agree with, and that
Yeah.
he's just interested in their point of view. Like Gavin McInnes, a lot of what that dude says is completely fucking retarded, but he does make some interesting and good points at some times. So like, listen, if you only ever surround yourself by like a circle jerk of guests who all love what you do and you guys are constantly on the same level, I think that would get super boring. So I think that's why his show's been pretty goddamn successful.
Yeah, I agree, man. I think like inviting on any walk of life, especially in relation to current events that are going on, to have different sides of the spectrum explain themselves. I think that's a really big deal, especially with the kind of limelight that Joe Rogan has and the amount of time he's spent on television and getting people's attention. So,
Mm.
he already has a pretty solid set of roots in all of that, and using it in such a way as to show the world all these different points of views, it's really it's wise. It's pretty
Oh
bad.
yeah.
I remember when you and I were listening to him talk about his deprivation tank experience when we were really young.
Hmm.
And like, what? We need to go do that. We still
Yeah,
haven't done that.
yeah, which I mean, out in Austin, man, that would be the perfect place for us to go do that because there's like float places all over the place. Last time I went to Austin, I was spotting them like left and right, and I was like, there's a float spot.
Would it contradict the whole idea to like go in with a GoPro and like try to just veg out with a GoPro on and then start like freaking out?
Well, I
Kind
think I think with a camera you wouldn't have any issue. Because I have heard Joe Rogan say that he wanted to take like some kind of notepad or something where he could write down some of the ideas that he was coming up with in the float tank.
Yeah,
But the act of like sitting there and writing it down would negate the experience. So like
exactly.
you can't be too focused.
Well, that's why I figure the closest thing you could do is like wear a GoPro, and you're not going to see anything obviously because it's not like you can tap into what you're seeing inside your mind. Not yet, at least. Not with the technology we have. Um, but you can at least sort of record like your. I wouldn't say they're like the recordings of your audible hallucination. Where you're just kind of explaining bits and pieces, but you try
Mm.
not to pull yourself out of it too much, so that when you're out of the tank, it's kind of like waking up from a dream. It's a lot easier to remember the dream in the dream than it is like getting out of the dream and waking
Mm.
up and being like, I kind of remember this and I kind of remember that. But if scientists could figure out how to record you while you were in your dreams, like they mentioned a few years back that they may have figured out how to record dreams.
Mm.
If they could record dreams while they were happening, that would be so brilliant.
It'd be yeah, because well, you'd have to. I think that we got to map the brain a little bit more as far as like what impulses make what happen. But yeah, I feel like we got to be right around the corner from that shit because we're already able to see so much of like what fires off in the brain. What when you're feeling this or when you're experiencing that, what your brain is doing. But then you have to deal with, I think, the complex idea that every brain's going to be different. It's kind of so like in order to record a dream, you probably have to figure out a way to like map somebody's brain first, and then
Yeah,
go from there.
I mean, we do have that technology, but maybe not yet to that extent.
Right.
So let's get into the first topic that I really wanted to talk to you about. I'd like to hear your take on this. I kind of need a reality check on this because of how much it was freaking me out. So going back to what I initially was introducing, I was driving a lot at a certain time across Texas, and sometimes, I just need something to listen to, and I started listening to these different people talking to, Art Bell on these old Coast to Coast recordings. And the only one that really caught my attention that I didn't think was total bullshit was this gentleman named Dave Paulides. And, I'm not saying that I'm trying to, sell his book or anything like that, because I haven't personally read any of his books.
Right.
Unfortunate to say the least, but at the same time, I've listened to a lot of what he said, and it sounds pretty credible. He has 30 plus years of police and detective experience, and he would try to go to these different national parks all over the U.S. to get these lists of missing people, and nobody would comply because every single person there said that the list did not exist, which was really interesting because all the reports existed and they would be important, and there would be a spike in the news for about 7 days, for about a week or so, every time, and that was the same pattern. But then there was never a list, at least not publicly. And when he he claims that when he demanded the list, they said, well, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars for the amount of research and effort it will take to amass that list of missing persons. Like that, the labor would cost. I don't know if it was hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it was thousands of dollars.
Pretty extraordinary amount.
Yeah, an extraordinary amount of money that most people would not have. And then a lawyer started calling him, and basically certain people would start calling him and threatening him in different ways, in offhanded manners. A lawyer was asking him a bunch of questions, and his response was normally like, "That's none of your business." But what struck me as odd in all of these disappearances, it's the people that went missing that had the they didn't have the ability to travel these long distances within such short periods of time. They're found in these weird places that are really hard for humans to get to, and their cause of death is usually unknown. Sometimes there's like scratches on the body, and sometimes the cause of death is ruled out as exposure to the natural elements, which is realistic. So a lot of these missing people, you can say, bears or wildcats maybe took them away. But some of these reports are like small children being seen at the tops of mountainsides, and then all of a sudden they vanish and they're never seen again. And then their bodies are found, and they're like laying perfectly in front of a path where people have been searching for a week or more. So it's like something put it there after people had been looking. And then another correlation to all of these disappearances is that they're missing their shoes. It's really weird. It's just like
weird shoe fetish.
Well, the weirdest thing about it is that the reality that sets in is when one day, I forget off the coast of which land, a bunch of shoes just washed up. I think it was in America, off the coast of one of the shores in America. I'm not sure where. You'd have to look it up to fact check me. But they even found a foot in one of these shoes, like a whole foot.
So there would be like missing bodies with a varying matter or varying cause of death, and then they would be missing their shoes, and then they found shoes elsewhere. Is what you're saying?
Yeah, there was one singular report that I'm thinking of. You can look this up. I'd be happy to get my laptop and look it up so we have a little more to work with. But there was even
Uh,
a picture of the amount of shoes that had washed up on shore, and one of these shoes had a human foot in it. And it wasn't ever really explained. It just showed up in the news one day, and then it just kind of went away. And
did the foot match any of the bodies?
I haven't done enough research to see, and honestly, I don't know if I have enough background to even be able to access that kind of information. Like
Right.
maybe I do. Maybe I could look into it further and see like if anybody's come back to report that, oh, we've matched the foot with one of these missing people. But the only correlation I've seen is that I happen to be listening to these old recordings of a talk show like over the last year of my life, and I got really obsessed with them because they all sounded so similar, and then like the differences in them were still just as creepy. Like people were placed on top of logs that people had been walking over to get across to like look for the person for weeks, and then
Oh.
one day it's just on top of the log, and like the way that, oh yeah, and another thing is that sometimes their clothes are like folded up next to them and stuff. Sometimes the people seem like they've been frozen and thawed out, like they found the bodies face down in dry creek beds, and the bodies
Uh,
are full of water, and these creek beds have been dry for like a long time. So
mhm.
there's just a lot of weird circumstances behind this, and so that's what got me into listening to Dave Paulides. um,
Mhm.
I will say on that note that I noticed there was a strange pattern in the way that his books were being sold on Amazon, and he claimed that like Amazon was making him sell those books for really expensive, but it kind of sounded like BS, and it sounded like he was trying to sell his books for a lot more than they needed to be sold for through Amazon. And then he was also saying, but you can go to my site and buy them for cheaper. And so people
Right.
in the comments of all these old recordings are like, dude, it sounds like this guy's just really trying to sell his books, because he never
Right.
says what he thinks it is. But the only reason I saw any credibility behind it is because there are other people who've been doing these reports and researching this, and he's the one that's been making presentations and been going and presenting them to the public. And like, I still have to say I have a lot of respect for him, even if it's all horseshit. It seems very legitimate, like, because I really highly doubt that this man, 30 plus experience of police officer and detective work, like really made all this up just to get attention.
What? And we can definitely, because I mean it's interesting. It sounds like to me there could be just a mishmash of like human depravity. Like a bunch of shoes wash up could just be, with one with a foot in it, could be some, a mishmash of like a serial killer in these woods, and then like a serial killer or drug lord also just dumping bodies in the, in the water, and shit like that. But the
Well,
weird,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
That could easily be it.
So it might. That's kind of what I'm. That's what I would say as far as like until you like the smoking gun would be if like one of the feet belonged to one of the bodies found, with the missing shoes or with a missing foot or some shit. That would be the smoking gun, which would make me think that there's some correlation. Um,
Absolutely. Here, let me turn my porch light on so that.
but yeah, go ahead, go ahead. So I'm gonna see what Lantern thinks about this other or this story.
Okay, well, I just kind of want to say to top that off, like, um, notes that I've been taking, like, totally on the side. Well, that's the majority of my life. I've been taking notes in lieu with these kinds of weird things. I just came across this story later on in my life, but one thing that connected to it was the concept of federal land and underground bases that we're not aware of. And so,
Mm-hmm.
what I think could happen is that people are so obsessed with the concept of extraterrestrial abduction with humans.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying it's not true, but I'm saying that uh, it could just as easily be human experimentation being done in secret bases. I mean, that was something like in the last episode we were talking about. Or it might have been the episode before. I mentioned Nazi influence in modern day society. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the you
Well,
know,
wasn't that, and that was kind of. Did you watch the most recent season of X Files?
Yeah, actually, I was gonna reference that because I did. I did watch the newest season.
I thought that that was a cool take of the fact that they did have alien technology, but it was actually the government using the alien technology to like abduct people and perform their own kind of experiments. So it was just like passed on technology. So it wasn't malevolent aliens or
Yeah.
anything like that.
Well, here's the thing. I think it's really important for me to point out that I've been taking these notes for a very long time, and that episode that they introduced the new season with, they mentioned 1947 Foster Ranch, New Mexico. That is a real event that triggered the whole UFO phenomena. Like, people believe that this UFO, this flying saucer that crash landed, was reverse engineered, and that is why there was a technological spike in humanity after the fact. And what I will point out, if you look it up yourself to anyone watching this, 1947 Foster Ranch, the farmer of that ranch said that a saucer crash landed and bodies were found by the military. A few days later, a general changed that official news report to say that it was a weather balloon, which is why you hear their joke in the first Men in Black movie, where they
The weather balloon, yeah, because it seems like such a bullshit excuse. You know, it really does. It's like that conflicts with the personal the people who were witnessing the event. It's so conflicted to what they saw. And what is it, like the swamp gas, like reflecting light and weather balloons and whatnot?
look.
It's kind of the old cliche.
I've seen shooting stars and I've seen weird lights in the sky, and I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
say that any of that was swamp gas. It's really hard for
We've seen together. I think you were there in Zilker Park once when we were hanging out, and there
Oh,
was all
dude,
kinds of crazy ass shit flying around.
well, okay. I just have to point out about that story that, ironically enough, I was laying down and I started jokingly going, aliens, aliens, because we're already laying and we're looking up at the stars. And I start pointing up at nothing. I swear, I didn't see anything at first. And I started going, aliens, aliens, they're everywhere. And people started stopping and looking up. And then we were like laughing. And then they kept walking. And all of a sudden, we saw what looked like a star just start drifting.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
And kind of taking weird, bizarre turns, and and like that's where it reminds me of Always Sunny, actually, where Charlie is talking about, he's like, you burn the trash and it goes up into the air and it becomes stars. He's talking about how like burning trash is green, and Max says a really great line that like sticks with me, even though it's such a doofy line. It's he's like, I don't think that he's right, but I don't know enough about space to disprove it. Like, I don't know enough about. And that's how I feel in a lot of these scenarios. Is like, I can't. It looks weird to me, but I'm also really ignorant to the science of space. I love space, and I look into a lot of science about space travel and whatnot. But I'm not a professional by any means. That's for sure.
No, nor am I. The only thing I will say I am is like a little bit of a fanatic when it comes to the occult and like old weird shit that people don't really pay attention to anymore. I've always been a kind of a collector of old little scraps of info, but it's hard to say what's real anymore with the internet being the way it is.
Well, it's fascinating, man. I mean, I really love looking at that stuff just because I love creepy shit. I love weird occult monsters, cryptozoology, ghosts, demons. That's all really fucking interesting to me. I've always found it to be really bizarre, even if in just the idea of it being a part of like the human mythos. It's still cool. It's still kind of rad.
You know what? It's interesting because even when you go back to like regular events in history and you dig a little deeper, you'll see that there are actually a lot of people who held seats in power that were interested in extraterrestrial ideas. Like, for example, I noticed that there was this connection to like World War II, and what fueled the rise of the Nazi Empire was actually two inner rings of knowledge. I wouldn't say it was knowledge necessarily in the sense that it was true, so to speak, but these people believed it was true, and they were in these little gatherings that no one else really knew about, but they inspired the rest of these war movements. But if you look at like the innermost notes and teachings, there was Madame Blavatsky, and I'm trying to think of if her name was Maria Orsonovich. and Helena Blavatsky and Maria Orsonovich were two really well-known mediums that were connected to the Thule and the Vril societies. And the Thule society believed that there was a secret land beyond the poles. That's what Ultima Thule meant. Is a land beyond the pole that essentially is why I was mentioning this whole quest to Antarctica thing, where everyone I was kind of upset with the whole flat Earth concept because I think it's really it's brushing the Antarctica theories under the rug. Like there might actually be some truth behind what's going on in Antarctica because there was a whole society that fueled World War II that believed they had there was a dreamland under the ice in this one place, and that their like creators lived there. And they also, these ladies claim to have channeled beings from a star cluster known as Aldebaran. And on
Is it? I not to interrupt real quick, but this is just
No,
something
go
that's
ahead.
off the top of my head. Is it true that Hitler acquired the Spear of Destiny at some point?
Yes, I mean as far as
Okay.
no, that's what we were taught in like mainstream history. I mean that's the kind of information that has you know allegedly seeped out, is that he did end up in a history museum in Vienna, and he acquired what was allegedly the spear that killed the dude known as Jesus. I would call him
Right.
Yeshua ben Yusuf, but there's a whole bunch of different names. And the only reason I think he might have been a real person is because they found an Aramaic Bible that, like, that I'm trying to remember. Turkey, in one of their museums nowadays, they have one of the original, what
Mhm.
became one of the books of the Bible, and it's like this dude that we know as Jesus now, like totally different story because it's in this old language that nobody speaks anymore.
Right. You know what I think is, I mean, clearly there's been some heavy editing when it comes to like the Bible and
Yeah.
whatnot. So there's not a doubt in my mind that there was probably some sort of prophet, that was really popular in his day that was preaching the word. Some of the stuff that Jesus was preaching.
I would say there's
You know,
multiple people all over the world that
Probably, yeah. Yeah,
job
they got
talking.
tied into one character.
Well, yeah, not even that they all became one person, but also that, like, if you notice that there's a book I picked up one day that's like they reflect what one of the Buddhas said versus what Jesus allegedly said, and they're literally nearly word for word. And I'm pretty sure you and I have had this conversation. Uh,
Hmm.
there's this story of if this dude did exist, he vanished for years and then came back and had all these Eastern teachings in his head. Um,
Right.
we're just supposed to believe that that's like the one thing to believe. It's like, no, it's hard to see.
See, I would say that it's probably what I would think is that it's probably just at one point the Catholic religion just kind of going, we'll take some of that, we'll take a little bit of those stories, those are pretty good,
Yeah.
like I should have those mixed in there. So yeah, it's an interesting idea, but what I was getting at is, regardless of the legitimacy of the power of the Spear of Destiny or whatever, just interesting that that Hitler would go out of his way to because he was interested in the occult. It's such a weird thing that this, I don't think we've ever had in the history such an evil, tyrannical, human, just monster of a human being who was also super fucking into the occult and all these dark practices.
Well, I mean, you did have Aleister Crowley. You did have what's his name, Jack Parsons.
Okay, yeah.
You did. I mean, and Jack Parsons was known as the father of the like the atom bomb, right? Or one of them at least. And he practiced like weird satanic rituals. I don't know very much about that. I just know a little bit of it. There have been a few people who have held these weird kind of seats of so-called power or weird influence in the mainstream eye. That
But Hitler's he's in the tippity top, because that's, to me, it's like Genghis. It's like if Genghis Khan was into some weird creepy shit, or it's if Joseph Stalin was
well, I was
some
gonna. Bill Burr makes a good point that Hitler's always deemed the most notorious man on the planet, when in actuality Stalin killed many more people than Hitler did. It's just the like weird things that went behind Hitler's rise to power, like the fact that he probably did burn down Parliament, and he definitely caused an uprising in a beer hall to start, government reform, and then all of a sudden his like socialist party became a fucking war machine that was deep down guided by these weird, strange beliefs and alien bloodlines that like people don't even fucking know about, dude. Like,
Man.
and if people had had that knowledge at that time, way less people would have probably listened to all of them, unless there was just some astounding evidence to suggest any of it. But at the same time, I don't think there's enough evidence in the world to suggest genocide. I don't think there is. But it's weird to think that this dude was in jail, wrote a few volumes of books, and he basically claims that two angels talked to him in his jail cell, and they told him like whatever they told him made him act the way he did it.
Hey, bro, you should take the Jews out.
Yeah, like what? So what? Yeah, I mean, it's just as well. You compare this to any other fairy tale. Like, how much of it do you believe? Is it all just like a lesson to be learned that you tell your child, like, watch out for the boogeyman, or was there some weird like projection of light that phased through the wall that brainwashes dude into like population control, like what weird little events in history that happen that make you question the nature of what we know as history.
Keep going. Sorry, I'm just
Go.
I'm texting. This is totally bad for me to do on stream, but I'm texting the girlfriend to make sure she doesn't come home like, what the fuck? I tried to contact you for hours.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna give her. I'm gonna give her the. We'll probably get Katie on here at some point too. I'm sure she would like to, because she actually pointed out something that I wanted to introduce, and I think on the subject of old creepy shit, like this falls right in the line with that.
Okay, bring it right on up.
Cool, man. Here, let me just love you, baby, streaming right now.
All right. Well, the other thing I'm gonna say, since we got kind of heavy into the Nazi aspect of things, like I can always go back to that because I have a lot of notes about how that was founded. Like, because it's not just me spurting things. I've been taking notes for a very long time, and there's literally people that have been around for a long time keeping bloodlines in check to the point where it's just nonsensical now. It's like they're called the keeper of pedigrees, and then you compare that to people that believe that aliens have something to do with their bloodline, and you allow that to influence the planet. That's like someone thinking they're playing with an ant farm, whether or not they really are. Like, you don't make someone think that. Like, don't give the human mind the ability to think it has more power than it actually does, because they'll start doing some real weird stuff.
Yeah, man. I mean, and isn't it interesting that it always, like, that's why socialism gets such a shitty rap in the world, is because every time there's some like evil, horrible motherfucker, they always are like, hey man, like, we're gonna start this new movement for the people. Like, Joseph Stalin didn't start the communist movement. That started in a complete Vladimir Lenin and all these other guys got the communist movement started, sparked by Karl Marx's ideology. And it was, a really good movement for the Russian people. And then there's always some Joseph Stalin who creeps in and is like, yeah, no, power to the people, I'm all about that. Just like, let me have control, and like I'll totally not massacre all of you, I promise.
Yeah. That's where it could be argued if it was good for Russia or not, because I mean, you look at the history of Russia, and I mean, you gotta really look at what's there, for face value. We're doing the same thing with our own country, dude. We have to do that to be realistic, But yeah. Speaking of Russia, I don't know very much about the history of communism in Russia, so to speak, but I will say that there's this interesting thing that was revealed in that little slice of information in Vault 7, where they talk about Russia being the scapegoat for the amount of hacking that the CIA...
Yeah, well, they had the ability to put fingerprints of other governments onto, so like if you go and you break into, you brute force into somebody's system to steal information from them, to spy on them, you can intentionally leave a fingerprint that's like, hey, we're China. China's doing this, or hey, this is Russia, and it makes a lot of sense to see that's not only possible. Now we don't have evidence that they absolutely did that, but that it's possible that they did that. And now we're seeing all this bullshit about Russian hacking, and it seems to be pretty convenient to be like, the CIA has the ability to put fingerprints of other people to frame other people for the hacking, and now we're trying to, it seems like we're trying to frame Russia for the hacking.
It's interesting the timing of all of this, because I noticed that right before this happened, my roommate Eddie made a prediction where he basically stated that Russia was going to help Trump win the election. And I was just like, what does Russia have to do with our elections? And I don't remember word for word what he said, but he did a pretty good job of explaining why Russia wants to have their finger in the pie, or whatever you want to say. They want to have their stranglehold on us. That's kind of a violent phrase. Maybe put a more passive one on it. But you want to have dirt on a country in order to not get fucked over by them, to put it in layman's terms,
Yeah. But at the same time, I always, when I think of that, it's like Russia's got some brutal shit about their country, but America can't be pointing fingers. We fuck up.
We're just
as bad as Russia does on a daily basis.
We're just conditioned to point fingers, which is why every time we do, like, in my mind, I need to take a step back and go, like, where did this intention come from, or where did this ideology come from? Like, you know what I mean? Because every country has its own propaganda. We're so freaked out to think like the people from America that have snuck into North Korea. You know what I'm talking about? Like the very few that have, and that one gentleman that went into like the old battleship, right? And there was like a video playing of how the history between North Korea and America went down.
Mm-hmm.
Just totally backwards from what we've been taught. We're like, we're the terrible bad guys, and they're protecting their people from us.
And the truth probably lies somewhere in the middle between our propaganda and theirs.
I don't know if I can say the middle because of what I've actually heard and seen about North Korea, because I like to think that I have forms of freedom here in America that maybe can't be expressed in other parts of the world.
Well, so in the case of North Korea, it's probably the truth leans a little further away from what North Korea is saying, because they literally build like fake markets and shit in their town when people visit. So they're like, look, there's fat little Korean boys hanging out. Everything's fine. No one's starving to death here.
Definitely don't look at the cannibalistic slave camps that we have, right?
Yeah. Don't pay attention to the Holocaust that we still have going on right now.
And
don't worry about that.
I'm not trying to get America in trouble for saying that. I'm just trying to point out the obvious. Like Google got in trouble. Google Maps, didn't they get in trouble for accidentally revealing slave camps to the rest of the world? Like, why? Did you not hear about that?
I didn't hear about that. No.
I don't know if it was Google Earth specifically, but Google had to withdraw some information that they had put on the internet. It feels interesting that I'm the first person to tell you this, because this is actually some pretty heavy information where there was just proof of internment camps in North Korea because of the ability we have with our technology to scan any part of the globe and see what's going on a day-to-day basis. They take pictures, every few months?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure. From the sky, from satellites, I'm not entirely sure how that all works. But
Japan actually just launched a new satellite that orbits the fucking Earth and takes pictures every 2 seconds.
Okay.
So it's just like mapping everything.
So my interpretation of months is now seconds in terms of how many times pictures can be taken from satellite's point of view.
Leave it to the Japanese to kick it up a notch, right?
Well, absolutely. I think their technological innovations are usually they usually stand out compared to a lot of different parts of the world. And I don't mean to generalize, because I think that there are places, we have a nice handful of American scientists and other scientists all over the world, like at CERN, that are trying to bend the very fabric of reality as well. But you got to appreciate, all these sources.
So real quick, let me. This is what Katie clued me in on this, and this is an article from CNN. We could probably dig a little deeper, but this is the first thing I pulled up. So, And conspiracy theorists are starting to connect this a bit to Pizzagate. So I'll just go ahead. 2 months ago, the Washington Metropolitan Police Department's new commander, Channel Dickerson, made a pledge: "Let's find our missing girls." Now, as the department posts profiles of missing Black and Latina girls in the nation's capital on its Twitter feed almost daily, members of Congressional Black Caucus are calling for a federal investigation. In a letter Tuesday, the lawmakers asked Attorney General Jeff Sessions and FBI Director James Comey to devote resources necessary to determine whether these developments are an anomaly or whether they are indicative of an underlying trend that must be addressed. And so the idea here is there is a fucking slew of Black and Latina, mostly Black girls, young girls, just disappearing in Washington, D.C., like on a day-to-day basis.
It's interesting. It's interesting because this still ties into everything we were talking about from the very beginning of this second session today. You can
I love the night session being the old creepy shit. That's what we should call it, old creepy shit.
I mean, yeah, we can think about what to call it because I like this idea of spitballing ideas for like the label. But wait.
501 cases of missing children so far in 2017. 22 cases were open as of Wednesday.
That gives me chills, man. And
500.
And the closer we get, here's what I honestly believe because of all the notes I've ever taken. You have all these people in the most you really have all these different spectrums of people. There's people that believe reptiles run the fucking planet. There's people that believe Satanists run the planet. There's people that believe aliens run the planet. There's people that believe, it's just, just like evil human. There's all these different beliefs. And then some people just tie that all together. From what I've gathered, the one thing that is the most realistic to me that I keep noticing out of all these wacky claims, let's put all that aside and just notice one thing: the amount of missing children that is so consistent, and how that has never really been officially dealt with because we're too busy killing kids in other parts of the world to look for the ones that are going missing here. Are you serious? Can we really redistribute some of that wealth to go towards finding out what's happening here, or is it more so the fact that all of these political connections would cause everything to erupt in the face of the very system?
It makes you wonder if it's because the reason, because these are kids, dude. I mean, I don't think anybody has a problem or gets a thorn up their ass when they hear kids are missing. Everybody wants to find missing children. No, that bums everybody out from top to bottom, right? Even black, white, whatever. We can all agree for the most part that missing children need to be. That's a huge issue that needs to be addressed, unless you're like fucking those kids, and then then you probably aren't too concerned that they're missing.
Yeah, exactly. Especially if there's a whole web of wrongdoings betwixt these
501 cases in this year so far. That's more than 100 kids a month.
Let me give you something to think about for a second. One thing I noticed right before we started doing this podcast is that there may be some truth to this Pizzagate concept, despite the fact that the mainstream media wants to totally throw it under the bus and say like, this is ridiculous. I'll admit that it is ridiculous to assume the worst out of borrowing slices of pizza. But at the same time, we know that there's some weird code going on, and we also know that there's a private jet that politicians, including Bill Clinton, used to go do terrible deeds on a private island.
On the Lolita Express, dude.
Yes, sir. Yeah. That's very much directly tied to all of this. And that's why...
And no one talks about that. Go ahead.
The thing, I'm sorry, I'll let you talk.
No, go ahead.
Right before Trump won the election, what I think some of the things that won him the election were the outrageous things he would say right at the last second that caused everything to shatter. He pointed at Bill Clinton during his debate with Hillary and was like, Bill Clinton has raped a 16-year-old. And everyone couldn't react because everyone was just like,
But when there's evidence...
And Bill Clinton took a fucking shit on camera. You could see he was just like, oh shit. Like, how do you react to that if other, like...
What was the name of that guy? Was it Jerry Sandusky or something like that?
Oh, yeah. There's him. I mean, then you also have the Podesta claims, too. And, all of these connections are starting to show up. And one thing I need to point out is like one guy started getting threatened by the owner of Comet Ping Pong, that pizza place, because he actually found an address of an alleged museum that no one ever visits called the Pegasus Museum, and no one ever goes there, and this guy bought it out, and there's like a weird little scrawled mark that says like kids in red right next to the building, and then this place has no windows on the bottom level, and it just looks really fucking creepy, and there's like no evidence of what goes on inside. And the instant this guy posted it on YouTube, James Alefontes started threatening him on Facebook and started showing him pictures of his mom and his sister, and that right there shows the depravity of a man who's been found out. And what's happening is he's going to his last resorts in his head before realizing that he is revealing himself at the very same time, because the police are not supposed to be investigating him.
Uh-huh. But yeah, I mean, you know, and that's another thing, man. That fucking the picture of the
which one?
The picture of the not the picture of the kids, the picture of their symbol that they had that perfectly matches up with the FBI's investigations of child molestation using those. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. I was just letting you finish because this is one of those things that I've been studying the occult for a long time, and one thing about the occult is there may not be true magic behind these concepts, or it's whatever you believe it is really, but one thing that does hold power is the concept of symbols, and symbols have been around for a very long time. They created the language we speak today, and symbols are used to let other people know whether or not you know about them. They'll put symbols in plain sight so that the people that are in those groups know about the symbol. And you're not supposed to know. You're supposed to just think it's a fancy symbol that's a logo for a business, because every business has a logo. But when the FBI...
Too bad. We got the internet.
But when the FBI has been investigating something for so long, and then the internet has the ability to extract all of the years of information despite the public... like whether or not the public is supposed to know about it, we are finding out about it nowadays. It's been going on for so long that it's only a matter of time. This is us just now finding out about something that's been going on since way before democracy.
Another quote from the article: "What the community is alarmed about. We had a 10-year-old girl missing the other day, but there was no Amber Alert. Anytime you have a 10-year-old missing for any amount of hours, no one knows where he or she is. That is rules for immediate attention. That's an alert that needs to be sent out." So yeah, 10-year-old black girl goes missing, no Amber Alert, nothing.
Well, if my theories about, you know, racism still controlling the old ways of the system, if that theory holds any water, this may have a direct correlation to that, where like these old white men think they can get away with abducting people of a different race, because it's just like this thing that's been happening for so long that now it originally the slave trade was not illegal. So if you think about the people that founded this nation came with this knowledge of like, oh, we grow our own crops, but there's so many crops to grow that we need free slave labor, so we gather slaves, bring them here, and then some, and most of these gentlemen were Freemasons. They're all in a little secret society together. That secret society was still along the lines of the mentality of thinking of bloodlines, which was the same thing the Bavarian Illuminati was doing, the same thing that the Nazi war machine was based off of. The concept of eugenics all came from the same concept of like empirical law, and
the reason that it's Latinas and blacks, just to interject real quick, the reason I see that is because it's the poor community. These are
also part of it too. Yes,
poor people, and it's just the rich going pick up the poor kids because nobody, people don't have the money to fucking stop everything they're doing and offer $500,000 reward to find this kid. And it makes a grotesque amount of sense. If there were a bunch of white girls going missing, there'd be this fucking huge explosion, and you definitely would get Amber Alerts at least. Like, what the fuck is that, dude? No Amber Alert gets sent out?
I will say that as much as I don't want to feed into the concept of racism, it does still exist, and especially through the old forms of thinking, the old forms of government. There's still remnants of it, because you have these old men still in power. I mean, you finally have some of them dying off, but they're the ones that have been the elite for so long. They were, like, I only mentioned bloodlines because that's where the concept of racism comes from. I'm
Well,
not.
and I wonder, I wonder if it's less to do with racism and more to do with, because to me it feels less like a racist thing and more of a power struggle thing. Like, poor communities typically tend to be black and Hispanic, and richer people typically tend to be fucking white. And so it just, to me it seems, I don't know if there's necessarily racism going on there or if there's just classism, that's happening.
I,
Fuck the poor, and the poor happen to be black and Mexican.
I think it happens to be more so classism now, because you see this evolution of mindset throughout history where now most people are getting along and kind of dialing back, basing things off racism. So now you have people basing things off of how much money they make, even through the music community, even through like on a local level, and then on a bigger level too. Like how much money you have and how much fame you have is more of a credibility now, more of a social status icon now, or a social status marker, I guess I should say. I guess say, because now you have YouTube being one of these things that's showing people in a new light. Like, you have a list of people that are well known, they get a lot of views, that means they get a lot of attention for doing something, and so you kind of immediately hop on board. What's this person about? And now that is so available, so readily available to so many people, it's just it's caused everyone to think that social status matters in this whole new light. People think they need to gain fame by being ridiculous and crazy and stupid, and then it's sort of the same thing with people thinking that rap was going a certain way. Like, mainstream rap was all about guns and fucking being a gangster and robbing people and getting all the bitches and getting all the money. And in a lot of ways, I see, like, because I'm from a city where I kind of understand that mentality, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, because it's just like it's really just your most basic concept of success is like, if I can get all this attention, all this fame, and all this money, I'll be good. And you're singing about it, you're making it like your own little spell that people sing back to you, and it empowers you. I don't necessarily see anything wrong with it until you start feeding people this bullshit that, like, you need to go kill people, or you need to do a certain thing in a negative way or a negative connotation.
Real quick, and this is a bit of a diverging topic, but I think just a little speed bump. I would did you see do you listen to Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
You a fan of Kendrick? Do you see Humble, his new video that he put out recently?
No, not yet.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's the biggest sign of outrage culture that I've ever seen, dude. So there's a line that Kendrick has. And I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he's talking about how he's sick of seeing these Photoshop bitches. He wants to see, like, stretch marks on these asses, and, like, he's I want to see the natural, chick. And he makes the statement, I don't want to see the fake shit. I want to see a real fucking girl. Like, that's what he's into. And you would think that people attached to the feminist movement, people attached to any type of anti-sexist movement would see that as, like, progress, right? You've got a rapper saying, don't fucking hide your stretch marks, man, like, that's sexy to me, like, that's what I'm into. But the backlash that he has faced, the feminists are the feminists are freaking out on him, and I've literally seen comments that are like, I like my misogyny to be, right out in the open. I don't want it to be, I don't want it to be wrapped up in, like, this nice package, saying shit like, women's bodies aren't here for you to comment on and shit. And it's like, what the fuck?
Fucking
dude?
kidding me? Oh my god. Here's what I gotta say about all that, and I'm sorry. I gotta just balance out the feminist movement, man. Okay, so this is a very general statement, I support the concept of women standing up for themselves if they feel like they're being mistreated. That is what everyone has a right to stand up for themselves if they're being mistreated. You have the right to your own body and your own rights. That's what I've always thought. I've never thought differently. But when it comes to what people call feminazis, I think it's really the concept of you have these sore losers I mean, they existed before the Hillary Clinton thing, but once Hillary Clinton was just tarnished and totally thrown away in the presidential campaign, I think all the feminists that were on board with her just totally lost faith in humanity and proceeded to take it out on the rest of the world. And like people in general do that. I'm not saying that every feminist out there or every woman that supports feminists is doing the same thing, because that's ignorant to say.
Right.
I do think that there's a certain reaction that certain people get from an event in history, like okay, Trump became president, and how many people started rioting? Okay, and then you also start seeing a pattern where you had those three African American kids abducting that mentally disabled white guy because Trump got elected. That was that point I was making in that last episode. It's an example of like people taking an event and using it as an excuse to do what they really wanted to do.
Whatever the fuck they wanted to do in the first place.
And that's
But,
that's the real racism, and nobody, like the people in that position would never want to admit they're the real racist, because the only time I've admitted maybe I was being racist once, I got robbed afterwards by a black person because I had just explained to him like, I think because of my upbringing I have been racist before, and then a few days later I got my door kicked in by him and his friends, and they stole all of my shit.
Right.
Because that is the cycle,
Well, and like for me, what it was really a big symptom of, and I saw this too with the Women's March on in Washington D.C. I started seeing these posts about white feminism and how it's all white feminism doesn't take into account black people, and like the march was bullshit because it's just a bunch of white feminists like having a good time and taking selfies, and it's the outrage culture. It's like these people just need something to fucking bitch about. It's never good enough. Kendrick Lamar goes out of his way to be like, I'm not talking about fake girls with fake asses. I want to see real girls, and like I want to see a girl in her natural state. And that's still not good enough. That's still something to be pissed off about.
Okay, I don't mean to bring it back to the occult, but I think it's really important too because of the reflection it has on society. The divine feminine has been tarnished throughout history. There used to be a balance in the concept of male energy and female energy, and I respect that aspect of the world. I think that that's how the universe functions in terms of magnetism and in terms of like reality, like that. I'm not saying I don't believe in a person's sexuality being their own, because I don't think you have to be straight for that to make sense. But I also think that there's a balance between male and female energy. In saying that, the divine feminine, like the goddess, used to be worshipped and praised as this beautiful thing, and it was not skinny. It was always portrayed as having voluptuous curves, a big belly, like birthing hips, like because the woman gave life to the baby, right? And so that was why like these older cultures gave thanks to this and praise to this. And so if anything, you have Kendrick Lamar in his own modern day way bringing this concept back of like, he's not even saying it in a cult way, but I'm saying like he's bringing back this praise to like the voluptuous curves of a woman, the life bringer, whatever. And instead of getting the natural reaction, which is like, oh, you're trying to bring the divine feminine back, well, people probably won't call it that, but in my eyes, that's what I would see it as, like,
Right.
as a collective consciousness kind of thing. Like, oh, you're bringing the balance of the divine feminine back. And then instead of getting that reaction, he gets like a majority of females or a big chunk of females being like, you're a pig. And he's like, I'm trying to get rid of that, like, it's
exactly.
so ironic,
Well, and I mean, at some point you gotta take a deep breath and like, because there's real shit to be pissed off about in this world. Like we're just looking at, there's fucking 500 kids that have gone missing since fucking January 1st. There's 500 kids. Like, that's something to be pissed about. Kendrick Lamar's lyrics about liking stretch marks on asses, fuck off with your fucking fake outrage, man.
I honestly believe that the reason there hasn't been more research or more development in that investigation is due to the fact that all of these connections still tie to people with heavy political roles. They haven't finished their roles in the fucking game of chess that's being played. It's been played since before democracy was born, or the illusion of democracy, rather. And
you have these emails just now being leaked to the rest of the world. It sounds really weird, and if they are linked to anything about child trafficking, what's going to happen to the government? What, like, who the it's not are there just suddenly going to be a brand new group of people to replace everyone there that they prove to be sinister? Do you realize how many people might be taken out at one time because of like how much substantial evidence that like even the next president had something to do with this, and some senators, and maybe a governor or two, and maybe a few people in the Supreme Council. Like, so what does that mean about our government? If all of these people are tied into this, if there is any sort of evidence to suggest that these different tiers of the government that are supposed to maintain checks and balances, like we were talking about in our day shift, so to speak, like if those people are all bogus and they all one way or the other, there's at least a fraction of them in each tier doing these sinister, unspeakable evils. It doesn't matter what background you come from. If you do have a good heart, people will band together to make sure it doesn't happen anymore. Why is that not happening right now? Well, because it's not in your face enough. And it's interesting to see that every time I've brought it up because of it is a distasteful topic. It's not something you want to really remain on for too long. You'd rather stray away from it because it's disgusting and disturbing.
Your mind is naturally repulsed by any kind of idea, unless you're fucking kids.
Yeah, exactly.
I think it was Louis C.K. who made the joke. He was saying something like, either you're like totally appalled by the idea of like fucking a kid, or you're like you can't stop fucking kids. There's only two ends of that spectrum, like either you're a part of that problem or you're totally fucking disgusted by it.
But what's the real answer for that problem? Because I've had this conversation before. It's not that I haven't. What do you do when you find the scientific evidence behind a person whose mind works that way? What do you do? Do you put them all in a box and shoot off into the sun? I mean, people probably would get a GoFundMe going for that. But like, who would deem it? Who would deem it legal, or who would deem it like okay? Like, yeah, let's get all the pedophiles together and do X, Y, or Z with them. Like, what are you supposed to do with them? Because putting a tag on their ear and putting them back out in the world doesn't seem to work. You know what I mean?
No, and that's why. And this almost seems. I could see how someone would argue this is inhumane in a way, but I would say, like, my biggest thought would be, to fucking. To just study these people. And that sounds weird to say, like, use humans almost as like lab rats. But that it seems to be like that's a cause that I could, if you can't put them back in society and you don't want to just lock them up forever, like, can't something beneficial be done? Can't we, do some sort of study on how their brain works and what's gone wrong, and is maybe there a way to fix that? Or because the sad reality of it might be that it's interesting that not all people who are sexually abused, turn out to be sexual abusers or child abusers themselves. But a lot of people who abuse children were abused as children. And so in that way, it's almost this weird virus, that it gets passed on to you. Like, if you get fucked as a kid, there's this weird chance that there's like this viral entity that enters you, and you do that, you propagate that shit onto someone else. It's almost like this like weird ethereal STD.
Well, it's the same reason people still argue the existence of the devil, is because you just have this sinister viral evil that seems to infect the minds of people. And then you wonder where it comes from, because you're like, I wouldn't do that shit. So, I think you're absolutely right, because what are you going to do? Line them all up and kill them? Like, that's terrible. It's inhumane. But actually, if you look at the facts, we are already living in a world where we are statistics. We are just a number on a sheet of paper. And so in saying that, and the fact that Big Pharma, Western medicine, like specifically has such a big hold on the entire nation, like you should use the same knowledge to just take your idea and fund it and go with it. It's like, well, we already live in a giant Nazi experiment, so why not take all these disgusting, disturbing people and put them in the experiment, and all the people that are actually trying to live peacefully, we go out of the,
Hey, Lantern, real quick, I'm gonna Real quick, your stream is breaking up a little bit on your end. You're starting to get a little choppy. So what I was gonna suggest, real quick, I might put the stream. I'm gonna put some music up real quick, and I'm gonna go pour a drink, and then I'm gonna hit you right back on Skype, and we're just gonna have like a quick, just 2-minute break or so. I'm gonna keep the stream up though, so we're not dropping the stream. We're just gonna have a quick pause. Does that sound good?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Cool. Yeah, I'll call you right back for anybody watching. We'll be back in just a moment. Give us a second. We'll be right back with you.
We'll be right back.
All right, ma'am. Call you right back in a second. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of animals as leaders just because I don't feel like animals will come after us.
Yo,
All right. Hey, what's up?
we're back.
We are back. Let me make sure stream is still doing well. Everything looks fine.
Welcome by watching.
Welcome back, everybody. So I played a little bit, just to give credit, played a little bit of Animals as Leaders there as we were away, simply because I don't think they would come after us for copyright.
And they're awesome.
And they're awesome. They're awesome as well. Hold on one sec. Do something. Pull my shit back up real quick.
Also, if they were to contact you about that, would that be so bad?
No, not at all.
Okay.
If they were to come after that, okay, cool. We are good. We are good. We're back streaming live.
I just want to point out,
before we go any further, because I want to talk a little bit more about this missing 411 and the 500 missing this year. I want to talk more about that, but I also want to say, depending on how much attention this starts getting, I want to just say that I have attempted to contact DC, the people at DC, and officially ask them if I can be an honorary Green Lantern. Not for money, because I'm just trying to make a difference as like a hero, and I really do think that I tried to tell my story, and it probably sounded insane because I haven't even really fully explained that story. That's kind of for a later time, but I ended up being very convinced that I have like abilities and that I am some kind of like makeshift hero amongst people that also have that same potential. I was trying to explain that to DC, and afterwards, after I sent it, I'm like, they don't give a fuck about this. The only time they're gonna care is when people actually maybe are like interested in what you and I are saying, to the point where it does go viral, and then all of a sudden DC's like, hey, why you dressed up as one of our most famous characters? I'm like, well, I support y'all. Can you not sue me?
Dude, and I think this is kind of what you were getting at a second ago. If DC ever comes out or comes after us for copyright over you wearing the mask, that means we're fucking doing something right. That means we've moved in the right direction. So if that ever happens, shit. I mean, we'll figure it out then. But that'll be an exciting day. The second DC comes after us, I'll be like, fucking sweet. That means we got an audience.
Well, that, and also DC's not going to know where to find the Hall of Justice at that point. Like they may have funded and fueled the fictional universe, but there's more to it in this universe. I honestly.
Man, I would love if we get to that point at some point. We could name it the Hall of Justice, have our own studio where we broadcast out of. That would be great, dude. I'd be so excited.
There's nothing wrong with that. Again, as long as DC doesn't slap the big dick across our faces, you know what I mean? But anyways, let's change gears here to something way less nonsensical or silly, So
if you want to go back to the missing children's thing, so just to keep quoting from the article. I mean, and this is on CNN, dude. This isn't some weird unknown news page. This is straight off CNN. This guy, Robert Lowry, who is the vice president of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, said, the more the public becomes aware of this issue of missing children, the more lives can be protected and potentially saved. While Lowry said the number of child abductions is down across the country, the level of runaway cases seen in D.C. and other major cities is particularly disturbing. And so, that's straight from the horse's mouth, man. That's somebody saying that, hey, in general, across the country, abductions are down, but in major cities and metropolitan cities where there's the biggest concentration of people, they're wildly out of control. They're bizarrely out of control.
There's also the question of how many alleged runaways are actually abduction victims that we know nothing about. If any of this is being covered up intentionally, which, okay, even on the most basic level, someone with no fame or no notoriety has the ability to abduct a person and try to cover it up. So if a well-known person abducts people on a consistent basis, they have to make sure that their security guards aren't necessarily nearby, but they're watching the perimeter, which is also mentioned in some of these emails. They have to make sure that things are prepared a certain way and that they're also in undisclosed locations that only the group knows about, that nobody else knows about. Which brings me back to the whole Pegasus Museum thing. When this gentleman, I need to give him credit, I don't remember his name, but he has he had a vote website where he was displaying this information, and then he also made a few YouTube videos that Alefantis found and threatened his sister and mother. He basically, in a roundabout way, said, like, I'm going to kill your family if you don't remove these videos. And so this dude did remove them, but then reported to the Galveston police what happened. And so now they're supposed to be investigating this dude who's also in Forbes' top 40. So,
it's hard to say what kind of allegations are going to actually hit him without sliding off.
Okay, sorry to interrupt. I was just doing a little search, and not to get too in on the woo-woo shit, but I was just doing a research I wanted to pull up more info on Pizzagate. This is the first time I've ever had this happen in my life researching something. I only get this message ever when I'm trying to illegally pirate something. There have been U.S. Digital Millennium Copyright Act filed, or reports filed on searching for Pizzagate. There's DMCA complaints on the search of Pizzagate. That's fucking bizarre. I've never typed in anything other than, where do I find Pirates of the Caribbean? That's the only time I ever get these fucking DMCA reports.
Are you really that surprised? Or maybe we're getting more attention than we thought we were.
No, I mean, it's not, because it's not me personally. This is just off of Google.
General, I thought you were saying it was happening right now, like something was happening to your computer.
No, it's just these are DMCA violations that I don't see how that has anything to do with Pizzagate. I've seriously only ever seen that when you try and illegally search, or you try and search for an illegal way to pirate material. I've never seen this. I could type in anything else, I think, in the subreddit right now. If I type in Lolita Express, which is fucking where Bill Clinton was done, there's no TMCA shit. There's no. That's bizarre to me. That's fucking weird.
There's a blackout. The media's having a blackout event of Pizzagate, dude. They're trying to act like it doesn't exist so that people don't cover it. The dogs start barking. Here comes the fucking police.
Yeah, I'm gonna close the door real quick just so the dogs don't get too rowdy, too loud on the stream. But that's fucking bizarre, dude. That's super fucking bizarre. I've never seen a DMCA on anything other than, like I said, me trying to illegally download shit.
Which you don't do, you've just considered.
I've just tried to do it, and then I got blocked by the DMCA files.
There you go.
Yeah, I've never actually downloaded anything illegally.
Yeah, of course not. But anyways, so one thing I want to point out that I think, my mind does like to jump to conclusions, and it does like to make connections where there may not be any, which is why I like to talk to people like you. And I like that you call yourself the disillusionist, because I do see you as that kind of person. As a person, and it's funny that I'm the other person that you're talking to is the dude that's like, I've got superpowers and I wear a Green Lantern outfit. And you're like, yeah, magic is fucking fake, and this is all a children's story. But in actuality, I think a lot like you do, in just maybe a more fantastical way. But I do see maybe a potential connection between what Dave Paulides was figuring out, the lack of evidence, and the fact that all of these missing people are on federal land, and the fact that the government is so directly tied into trying to black out the Pizzagate media. Like, why are so many people...
Reddit banned it as well. They completely banned the subreddit. Now, they said that it was to keep from witch hunting, but I don't know, man. There's been a lot of blackouts on that, weirdly so. Like I said, I've never seen DMCA files on a subject on Google before. That's the first time I've ever seen that in my life. That happened just now. I had no fucking clue. I was just pulling that up just for the fuck of it.
Okay, so that did happen just now. Well, here's why, man. Is because we're live streaming as much information we can about connecting the web of conspiracy so that we see a more realistic viewpoint of it. And maybe we are actually hitting something. I don't know. I do think that people have the ability to come to conclusions if we bring our minds together, and especially with the internet at our disposal. But at the same time, you see this pattern, and the more and more people look into these sinister things and their connections to our governing origins, everything starts kind of shutting down. People start getting shot. Things start exploding. Dogs start barking. You know, like things just start falling apart because it's like, no, 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 no. Like, we're gonna shoot you. Like, don't talk about the things, or we'll kill your family. Like, dude, that's the shit that happens. It's like the closer you get to the truth, the more these sinister people start popping up and going, hey, we're your friends, but if we're not, we're gonna kill you. You know.
No, totally, man. Sorry, I'm browsing our conspiracy just to see what's
Look up the missing 411 stuff. See that's what I was trying to say. See if that has a connection to any of this, because
there's a
that
piece of Pizzagate shit. Because this is just, I'm fucking interested in Pizzagate. This is fucking, it seems, like I said, I whenever I gravitate to shit that I'm naturally inclined to believe and feel this huge, like, skeptical backlash towards, because it's interesting.
It's horrific, but also I wouldn't be surprised if it were true. It's one of those things where it's so outrageous that you believe it's true immediately. You're like, dude, I think that is true, because there have been famous actors. I won't name them so that they don't get any highlights in this and get mad or upset if I name them, because I may have already named them. But anyways, like, there's certain actors and maybe even actresses I can't think of at the moment to be victims of this very thing. They were used and abused as children, and they grew up to be slightly estranged individuals because of the amount of horrendous stuff that happened to them as children. Because you have these famous business executives that are unnamed and unknown because they're not the famous actors. They're the ones, like, funding the famous actors and actresses. They're the ones that are like, oh, you want to be famous, huh? You know, like, that's that whole terrible joke of, like, fame. You know, like, whose dick did you have to suck to do blank? You know, it's really more along the lines of, like, this is a real thing that occurs that, you know, on the outside, we're like trying to think of how to say it. In the world where everyone likes to be plastic and pretend like nothing's wrong, you know, amongst the people that don't even think about that shit, they're like, that would never happen, that's not happening. But the more it's obvious and apparent, the more you see this connection to people being like, nope, shut it down, like, because people are like, no, this can't be true, no, wait, no. And then, of course, it's like, you know, everyone's excited to see a female president, and she happens to be potentially connected to something that might be connected to all of this sinister shit. She already had connections to warmongering and drug trade, which funds warmongering, which is just like, you're just gaining these different resources through illegal means, and it's no different than a criminal. They're just treated differently because of their business connections.
Man, this is, okay, god damn, this shit is fucking creepy, dude. This Pizzagate shit is fucking creepy.
Yeah, Heavy Breathing, that band Heavy Breathing and Comet Ping Pong, dude, they're a creepy ass band, and they just, like, they let them play. It's like a family event, but it's just so bizarre.
Well, there's this excerpt I just pulled up. It's saying, you know, okay, so this is an email from this chick, Tamara Luzado, who I guess had a baby girl, and this is an email leak from, I think, the Podesta leaks. And she says, with enormous gratitude to Advance Man Extraordinaire Halber, I am popping up again to share the excitement of the reprisal of our gang's visit to the farm in Lovettsville.
Wait, slow down. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm hearing everything you're saying correctly. Start over.
So she says, I'm popping up again to share our excitement about the reprise of our gang's visit to the farm in Lovettsville. And I thought I'd share a couple more notes. We plan to heat the pool, so a swim is a possibility. Bonnie will be Uber service to transport Ruby, Emerson, and Maeve Luzado, which I don't know. And then it gives their ages, 11, 9, and almost 7. So you'll have some further entertainment, and they will be in that pool for sure.
I remember this email. I didn't know what it was in relation to, but the farm, I've heard references to this farm. And it sounds way too obvious that it's referencing to one thing. It's very hard to say, like, what else could that be? You know, what else really could that be?
Since when are you addressing adults and you say, we're going to transport Ruby, Emerson, and this girl, Maeve, and then you list their ages, 11, 9, and 7, and then say, so you'll have some further entertainment, and they will be in that pool for sure.
Here's the thing, man. Here's the thing.
That's
Let's
fucking weird,
let's
dude.
pretend
That is some
okay.
creepy shit no matter who you're talking to.
Let's pretend that you and I are parents, that we have
Right.
our children are having a birthday party, and it's cold this time of the year, and there's a birthday party at a farm. So let's say that's all real, or we're just we're just basing it up. So now imagine that you're reading that email to me as a parent that's sending over like a group of some children that your kid knows. Now, I'm really trying to see this from a different perspective. I'm not saying this is what I believe is going on, but I just
No, totally. No, it's a good way to go about it.
I need you to reread that email to me as if I were like we're both parents and there's a birthday party that's about to happen.
And I thought I'd share a couple more notes, and this is two parents, two adults talking to each other. We plan to heat the pool, so swim is a possibility. Bonnie will be Uber service to transport Ruby Emerson and Maeve Lozado. Keep in mind, not all of us as a family. She's going to transport these kids. 11, 9, and 7.
Almost 7.
And almost 7. So you'll have some further entertainment. And they will be in that pool for sure.
Okay, yeah. No, I just can't. This isn't.
They're gonna be in the pool, bro. They're definitely in that pool.
So they're telling who is telling who that there's gonna be further entertainment, that the kids are further entertainment. Do you know?
So this is from the mother of Maeve, or I guess her daughter. And I don't know who she's sending it to. I don't know who this is being sent to. Let's see. So this is a WikiLeaks. The WikiLeaks bash today mentions a girl named Maeve Lozado being brought in as entertainment. It references her being almost 7 years old. This is a website for the birth of it. So there's also some website for this girl who was being born. Confirmed it's this girl because both the names of her and Ruby Lozado. So this lady's talking about all the kids or a couple of kids that she's had. And they've all gone to the same party. It's just fucking bizarre, dude. Who talks about kids saying you'll have entertainment? It seems like I don't want to read too much because that's all you can do in this is read into things, and I don't want to read in too much. But like, there's further entertainment, and those kids are gonna be in the pool. That's weird, dude. That's fucking weird. I couldn't ever see writing that as a parent, being like, yeah, here's the specific ages of the kids. I'm gonna Uber them over, and they're gonna be in the pool, bro. They're definitely gonna get in that pool.
It can be entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing that makes sense to me, other than something sinister, is on the other side of the coin. It could be if the person they're saying that to has a kid whose birthday it is. They're trying to be like, well, who's going to entertain my child? Because kids need entertainment. Otherwise, the parent has to deal with whatever tragedy occurs from the kid not having a fun birthday at a farm by themselves. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that is what that conversation is. It doesn't have to be that far-fetched. It really could be that there was a kid. But if they're sending an email directly to a dude who has no kid, and they're like, these children are gonna be entertainment, yeah, that's fucking weird, dude. But we need to know the difference. Like, was there a kid whose birthday it was? Or am I just feeding a fucking accidental bullshit lie to the people, who are doing all of this? They're gonna be like, yeah, that's what it was. Will we know? Like, the only thing that's gonna make people act on a higher level in terms of like pulling the carpet out from under these people's feet is by unforeseeable events and unseeable shit, like shit you cannot unsee. Like, once people start seeing photos that are leaked on WikiLeaks, like, there's stuff that these people that are leaking all this information have not leaked intentionally because they know it's going to cause an uproar, an upheaval of some sort. They've only been leaking little bits and pieces at certain times, and it kind of goes with the timing of things too. It's weird.
But if there was enough evidence to support these claims immediately, beyond a shadow of a doubt, to where like the mainstream media couldn't even cover it up, everything would turn upside down, which might be right side up, you know?
Yeah.
It might be right side up, but it wouldn't necessarily be an effortless task. It would be, first of all, we would have to find out about a tragedy. It's kind of like Watchmen, except on a much more realistic level. It's not one giant squid alien that was made to create a threat. It was like way worse, way more sinister, way darker, way more intrinsic. And every time people actually start finding, connections here and there, things start shutting down. People start getting threatened. It's a lot more realistic. It's a lot more visceral.
Fucking yeah. I don't know, man. It's really hard to get. It's hard because it's just reading into things, and I have trouble reading into shit.
Don't we all?
But it just seems so fucking bizarre. It seems so fucking bizarre. All the hot dogs and the what was it? We're gonna bring $60,000 worth of hot dogs or some shit like that.
See, that's all weird. Like, there's no. I mean, okay. Again, fundraiser, $60,000 worth of hot dogs. What the fuck is in those hot dogs, dude?
Yeah.
Like, you could probably feed, 1,000 people with like what, $500 worth of hot dogs? Like maybe less, maybe $200 worth of hot dogs. Like you could literally feed 1,000 people $200.
Well, at $1 a dog, that's 60,000 hot dogs. That's more hot dogs than anyone would ever eat. But let's say that these are gourmet, top-notch hot dogs, and they're fucking $10 a piece. That's still 6,000 hot dogs. That would feed, if everyone got 2 hot dogs, that's 3,000 people that you'd be feeding with hot dogs. That's
not a lot of people in the grand scheme of things, but at the same time,
of $10 hot dogs. Just of hot dogs.
I think there is a lot more going on than meets the eye, and if you look at these weird little codes that they're sending each other, you look at the ones that seem the most unrealistic, like walnut sauce on pizza and then borrowing pizza slices. That right there like stands out the most, more than most of those. I haven't poured through these emails. I don't have that attention span. But I have looked into enough of these messages and just watched people talking about them and looking them up in the news. And, you see a weird little pattern where there's something going on that we're not supposed to know about. And the instant we start figuring out the actuality behind it, no matter how much we want to be in denial about it, if we want something to be done about where all these missing kids are going, and it has to be direct, and it has anything to do with the same reason we're being firewalled out of this topic, it's gonna eventually be torn down because people want their kids back, man. Like, people want their fucking kids back, and I'm willing to support that cause for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? Like, every parent deserves their child. That child deserves to live a life. That's as simply as you can put it, man. No kid deserves to be unfound. Even if they run away, they deserve to be checked in on. Like, even when, dude, you remember when I ran away from home? Like, I ran away from home. My dad still checked in on me. Everybody was still, like, keeping an eye on me. Like, what the fuck's going on? You okay? I mean, that's not technically really running away from home if everyone still, like, knows about you, knows where you are. But there was a time where, it's like you just cut yourself off from your family. But, like, you need to be found after a certain point, even if it's just to make amends, to know that you're safe and sound and, like, I didn't need you anymore, whatever, mom, dad, whatever. These people need to be found. These children need to be found.
Yeah, man, and the fact that there are 500 missing kids in Washington D.C.
And this is the beginning of the year, right?
Yeah, that's 2017. We're at the beginning of April. That's 3 months worth of missing children. I mean that let's see, that's how many? What is that? 90 days roughly.
Yeah, that's nearly 200 a month.
Yeah, that's okay. So if we real quick, so 500 kids divided by 90 days. Uh, let's see here. So that's 5.5 repeating. That's 5 kids a day.
So yeah, no. So let's round up to 6 about. So like, so literally on average of almost 6 kids is going missing in Washington. Is it
A
just
day.
Washington? Is this statistic
That's
just
that's
on?
just that's not even Washington. That's Washington D.C. That's the capital. That's a city.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So
Damn.
that's 5 kids a day for
In
the past,
capital.
yeah, in the capital in the past fucking 3 months. That's 6 kids a day if you round up. That's crazy.
If like
That's crazy.
people saw that as a visual statistic, nobody would be okay with that. Like if everyone just saw a commercial, like if commercials weren't designed to be about buying things and they were designed to make people aware of things, it would be a totally different world we lived in where like there was a commercial of just a van pulling up to a random kid and picking them up and driving off. And that happened 6 times a day. Like there was 6 commercials of that a day on national television. That would
Yeah.
make people wake the fuck up. They'd be like, "Oh
Mhm.
shit, is that really how many times a child's going missing on a fucking daily basis? Holy shit. Holy shit."
Yeah.
And that's just this that's the 6 times in one day. And if you did
One
it every
day.
single day and it was like based off that statistic and it didn't go away until we all did something about it, we would be disturbed into having to do something about it because that's what it causes. It's unfortunate that it takes a disturbance such as that for us to change as a collective, but it's necessary. Like this is the kind of ugly truth that needs to unfold for people to come together and say, you know what? I don't care what your religious beliefs are. I don't like pedophiles running the government. I don't like that. Uh,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I don't like fucking 6 kids going missing every day in one city. I mean, holy shit, dude. Like that's nuts. 6 kids a day? That's like how many fucking public schools do you have in Washington D.C., you know? That's like one kid going missing from one of those schools a day, you know? That's fucking crazy. Everyone's got to notice that.
well, the people that do notice it, that haven't brought forth enough evidence but have known about it for a long time, they're in just as much trouble as the people that are actually doing something that have anything to do with this. If there is some weird kind of trading system going on of children, dude, like the head of the snake needs to be cut off. There's no
Yeah.
easy way around that, dude. There is no easy way around that. You need to figure out
Well,
immediately
and
where the source is and
to tie it into, to go back to the whole Bill Clinton Lolita Express thing, man, if you're hanging out with Jerry Sandusky and he literally has a private plane that's dubbed the Lolita Express that's exclusively known to go fly rich people out to fuck kids, and Bill Clinton flew on that shit, but everyone's just like, whatever, how does that happen? How does it happen that there's like, hey, there's solid evidence to prove that Bill Clinton probably fucked some kids, and nobody gives a shit? That's fucking weird, dude.
it is. Well, it proves that the Orwellian theory of our society may actually be true. If Big Pharma is running our system at all and we are being duped into thinking that this medicine people are being prescribed for their anxiety is actually good for them when in actuality it has all these negative side effects, we're instilling this concept of like zombification so that we ignore the obvious. Like there are people being abducted very obviously. We don't have direct connections to who they are, but like we need to take action, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
but we do live in this very. I mean, people. It's hard to admit to oneself that you've been brainwashed, man. Because I mean, you and I used to have arguments about religion because I used to be like try to be religious despite not even having read the extent of the Bible. I've only studied most of the books I studied were actually taken out of the Bible, right? So it was interesting to watch the evolution of my mind because I went from being like religious to more like spiritual and scientific. But the same thing needs to happen on like a faster rate with with everyone learning about these tragedies so they stop happening. You know, you
Real
need to.
quick, we got somebody here with us in the room here. I want to say hi. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in. We're talking about some old creepy woo-woo shit. So if you want to join in with us, let us know.
To kind of give you a recap, I started off talking about Missing 411, which was a book series written by Dave Paulides, but he's on a talk show, Coast to Coast with Art Bell, and there's some old recordings of him talking for hours about the amount of evidence uh, that points to people just going missing and the federal government not listing it publicly. And every time he tried to get public documentation of the amount of people going missing at national parks, lawyers would call him and threaten him, and would say it costs thousands of dollars in research and labor to get those lists and give them to him. There's a lot of
That
weird circumstances behind these disappearances too, with like missing shoes and being found in the same spot despite that spot being looked over and over for weeks, etc.
Well, yeah. So the kind of it's been a kind of a dark theme for the show tonight, but it is all revolved around missing kids, missing persons, kind of bizarre, interesting shit like that. So, um, I don't know. I think it's an interesting chat to have. I think it's been we're at an hour 45. Sorry, about to sneeze.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
Yeah.
But
You guys are welcome for that thing.
okay. Well, let me bring it back to a more like sci-fi approach, because we were talking about the more the darker side of a potentially political connection to all of these disappearances. But let's also look at the concept of like some of the very few of these stories that from the surviving kids' perspective of these disappearances. Like some of the survivors that have been found tell very strange stories. One of them, they're hard to believe, but when there's physical evidence coming from the elder, um, it's very interesting. Like it kind of gives you a new spin on things, where you're kind of wondering how true it might actually be. You see this, so this kid goes missing. He's basically out exploring a certain landscape. I don't think it's the Grand Canyon. It may be, but it was some kind of desert region. I believe it was a national park, and the kid goes missing. And at the same time of the child's disappearance, the grandmother goes unconscious. Well, she wakes up and her neck is sore, and the kid goes missing. I think he's missing for the day, but he comes back and he says that a robot that looked like his grandmother took him to an underground facility with cyborgs, essentially. And no, it's an unbelievable story. But the grandmother went to the doctor for her sore neck, and there was a puncture wound in the back of her neck that looked like a syringe had gone into the back of her neck.
That's fucking yeah. It's a little weird. It's a little creepy.
Yeah.
It's a little creepy, man.
I need to point out that I think one of my roommates turned a light on and off, so I might need to move my location.
Okay, yeah, no problem, man. Or I mean, we're also, we're at almost 2 hours right now. So I mean, we could. I think we've had a pretty good discussion so far tonight.
Yeah,
Um,
def-
we could get something going on later. Or we could save some of these topics for tomorrow morning and afternoon.
I'm down to maybe take a 5 minute break and see how we both feel from there. Maybe keep the stream running for now while I move around. If you want to just like,
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'll see if I can pull up some interesting shit. I'll see if I can get something pulled up that we could take a look at. Um,
and then I'll
but
find
yeah,
I'll find a more quiet place to move for right now.
okay, cool, man. Well, yeah, let's we're gonna take a quick break, and we will or will not be back. We'll see.
All right,
All right, guys. Be back in a moment.
bye.
All right. So for this break, I'm gonna go ahead and play. Fuck it. Let's keep animals as leaders going on there. Let's give you guys a little bit.
right.
Blue Lantern back in the house.
So let me ask you something. I don't want to put you on the spot. I mean, if you're getting tired or you think there's a good stopping point, do whatever you feel you must. But I'm down to keep talking about this for a little bit.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I feel like we've been hitting our topics. I don't know. Do you have anything else locked in the barrel? Because I had about that whole Washington D.C. thing. That was like all I had. That's all I had for tonight, for the most part. But
I mean,
man, we were just jamming out to At the Drive-In, another band that I don't think will hit us with copyright because they're not even a band anymore.
but they're also, you know, they're kind of experimental and independent in a sense that they might see this and go, yeah, okay.
Dude, if fucking once again, yeah, if anybody from if Omar Rodriguez Lopez hit me up and was like, bro, you gotta pull down that At the Drive-In shit, I would be like, this is amazing. Can we just talk?
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
we just talk to each other for a little bit?
Yeah. I think what I was initially telling was this one single account of a kid going missing for a very small period of time. Actually, if you could look up this event, it'd be kind of helpful. I don't know what words to use in terms of like a hotkey, like keywords.
What was the name of the guy?
It was a child and his grandmother, and the kid went missing momentarily for like a day or so. I don't know if it was at the Grand Canyon. It's in one of those YouTube 5 weirdest things, one of those videos. Like they have a few different channels that have mentioned that occurrence, and then it's actually a thing it really did happen versus.
Well, that's what I'm wondering is if we want to do a little more prep for maybe tomorrow night's show, I'd be okay with picking it back up. As much as I like, because I enjoyed the shit out of this, so like I don't necessarily want to end the conversation either. But I also I do want the content to be as entertaining as possible. Like I don't want to stretch out an extra 20, 30 minutes just for the sake of it.
Yeah.
Just because I'm having fun necessarily.
Exactly. Well, I think we could at least conclude it with maybe like, one like mythical topic or one like weird kind of scary story.
Well, yeah, I think I would definitely want. I would at least for the future. I think what I want to try and do, even if we would just want to do some creepy woo woo shit. For the night's podcast, I would be happy with just getting some videos prepped and maybe running some videos next time, playing those in and having fun with that.
Oh,
I was also thinking that we could read, and I don't know I don't think the legality of this would be weird at all, but I think there's this subreddit called No Sleep.
Yeah.
And it's all people who tell creepy stories under the guise that they're real, and I thought that it might be fun to read from those live, maybe at the end of each night, and kind of give an idea of, or kind of have fun and tell a little story at the end, a creepy story or whatever.
I will. There is one thing that I will mention that seems to pop up. It's an interesting topic that it's kind of spooky. It's the concept of skinwalkers. To the point where the concept itself.
Wendigo.
Well, that as well, yeah. The Wendigo, Skinwalker.
That's our cat's name, by the way.
Oh yeah, Wendigo. That's crazy.
Yeah, she's a creepy little fuck. So.
It's a person in disguise, man.
Yeah, it's a creepy skinwalker. No, the skinwalkers, dude. It's one of those super like that's like top tier creepy shit.
It really is.
As a matter of fact, this could be fun. Let me just look up Skinwalker real quick and see if we can give for anyone who may not have heard the term before.
Yeah.
Read out.
Oh yeah, man! Spark the flame. Gotta fan the spark.
Yeah. In the Navajo language, Yi Naldushi translates to. That's not spooky. It shouldn't be Naldushi. That sounds too much like douche. To be creepy.
What's it translate?
Translates to by means of it. or goes on all fours. That's creepy already. That's fucking creepy.
That's werewolf shit, dude.
Yeah. While perhaps the most common variety seen in horror fiction by non-Navajo people, the Yi Naldushi is one of the several varieties of Navajo witch, specifically the type of Auntie Ginny, which I think Jin is maybe some type of demon reference there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. The legend of the Skinwalker is uncertain, most due to the reluctance to discuss the subject with outsiders, in part because strangers may be witches themselves. Thus, people are led to draw their own conclusions from the stories they hear. This is the kind of shit that I love, because just reading this, I can feel the hair standing up on my arms a little bit, and I'm expecting some creepy shit to bust in through the door and freak me out, at any second.
This is what I'm talking about. This is what we need to talk about at night, and it's like real occurrences where like I definitely see from an outside point of view how I would come off as a weird stranger even without this attire.
Dude, okay, so, and this is actually a great way to, I'm happy we continue to do this, because what popped up in my search results is, what is the Goat Man? Now, I don't want to talk about the Goat Man, necessarily. We can talk about Goat Man if we want to. I'll talk about my own first, like, old creepy woo-woo shit that I heard when I was a kid. My Uncle Charlie, and Uncle Charlie's a great fucking guy, but loves to scare the shit out of kids. That's, which I don't blame him for, dude. Like, that's, scaring kids is hilarious. That's like what Halloween is all about. I love that. But when I was about 7 years old, we were out camping, and my dad and my Uncle Charlie and my cousins Mark and John, we were all sitting down and we were talking to each other, and it almost seemed like a big ploy just to fuck with me, and they started talking about the Donkey Lady. And the Donkey Lady was a woman who supposedly roamed the hills out in Medina Lake, which is where this is. My uncle built a house out there, and this is before the house was totally built. So we were sitting in like the foundation of a little lake house, and so he tells me about the Donkey Lady, and the Donkey Lady is apparently this woman who was burned to death in her property apparently the original owners of the land were clearing out the property. They burnt down a lot of land just to kind of clear everything out, and it caught her little house that was on Medina Lake on fire. And the Donkey Lady would appear to you as this just dark, half-burned, crispy, just fucking half-melted, bizarre-looking creature. And she would come to you in the night and would pull you away. And she lived on the essence of terrified young men, is how the legend went. And holy fuck, dude. When I was 6 years old, that story scared the shit. Thinking about it right now is scaring the shit out of me. Because it's one of those things that, adults do to kids because they think it's funny, but as a kid, it wasn't so funny because I literally sat, like, in my sleeping bag just like, oh my god, I'm gonna die from the Donkey Lady, oh my god, I'm gonna die from the Donkey Lady. And this might actually be a fun segment for the show in the future, is doing, childhood terrors, things that scared us when we were a kid. Because I love horror. Horror is my favorite genre of movie. I feel like I've probably watched about 80% of all the horror movies that have ever been created, because I love them with my whole heart. And I think that the reason I have such a big love for horror movies is because I was so frightened when I was a kid. I used to get so scared of horror movies, dude. I saw Freddy Krueger. I saw Nightmare on Elm Street when I was like 5 years old. Fucked me up for a long time. I saw The Exorcist when I was 8, and that fucked me up on a whole nother level. And I feel like, that idea of, like, in South Park of, like, burning the funny fuse, I feel like that's what happened to me with the scary fuse. Like, I just got burnt out on the idea of being really scared, and now being scared is just exciting to me. It's something that I find really exciting.
I used to have to like cover my ears when I was watching horror movies, and I still kind of do, but I know now when to expect it so much that it doesn't startle me so much. And but I will give you an interesting topic. I was going to tell you of my experience with watching the movie The Mummy, but it's not nearly as exhilarating as my experience in my grandmother's house with what I would say is potentially an actual ghost that multiple people have encountered. Um, and I think I'm going to turn the lights off in this room to tell this story. You think that's a...
Yeah, get it creepy, dude.
Okay.
Nice and creepy.
Holy shit.
That's dark.
Let me get a flashlight. I can't.
Dude, I'm waiting for some scary shit to happen. I'm waiting for
God.
some shit to pop up on your end.
No.
No, you got that big Celtic Rin behind you, man. That's gonna protect you, dude. It's your shield.
Whew. It's freaky deaky. Alright.
Yeah.
I'm gonna scare myself more than anybody else.
Yeah.
Alright. This is a story about my grandparents' house. It's interesting, really, because if you watch the movie The Sixth Sense, I feel like I can relate to that movie a little bit, because there was this one scene that really freaked me the fuck out, where there's the people hanging in the gallows. That's the school now, in the movie, and the kid knows that it used to be a place where they hung people, but no one else knows because he can see the ghost of the dead, and no one else can. Well, before this movie ever came out, I would go to my grandparents' house a lot. My Meemaw and my Grampy. And my dad took me there because he was a traveling salesman and he needed to leave me there a lot. I loved going there. They spoiled me rotten. That wasn't the problem, in terms of how they treated me. They treated me like a golden child. It was actually kind of terrible, but, in the way that a child would not see it. But the one thing I really didn't like about their house was how dark the end of the hallway seemed at all times.
The Gugui room, dude.
There is a room in that house that people consider the Kukui room, but if anything, every room at the end of that hallway seems a little weird. I will say, though, that the very first time I had any inner workings of the concept of a ghost or someone that was still around after they died was when I first walked into that house and I walked through by the hallway. Out of the corner of my left eye, I really felt like I thought I saw a dude hanging at the end of the hallway. And like I said, dude, I have no reason to sensationalize this. It was very creepy to me, and this was before that movie The Sixth Sense came out. And this was way before that movie. So when that movie did come out, it freaked me the fuck out. I was like, oh god, they have that feeling, like, oh.
And the next month of my life is ruined.
Yeah, but what happened in between that time and after was what really made me sure that ghosts are most likely real. Now,
I'm gonna get creepy. I'm turning my light off too.
There you go. Okay, so I'll try to just tell it from my perspective, because a lot of people have stayed at that house and had weird things happen. But me personally, I really think that thing tried to contact me more than one time. So at first I thought I was making things up in my head because I was a kid. I didn't know any better, and I was like, why would I imagine a guy hanging himself at the end of a hallway? Like, I've never thought of that before in my life. That's bizarre. That's weird. So fast forward 10 years of my life, about, give or take, and I'm living there, for temporary amount of time while I'm looking for a new place to live. And because I don't like being there by myself, because my grandparents had the tendency to leave at certain times in the weekend, I invited friends over because I was legitimately scared of that house. And dude, I shit you not, every time I was alone in that house, it just seemed like someone else was there. And it was really fucking weird. And so I had parties, and there was this one dude I've never met since, and I've only met one time. He had glasses, he kind of had black bowl cut hair. He just looked kind of like a comic book character. Like, just almost, I wouldn't say dorky because it's rude, but he had almost like a dorky feel to him. But he was getting along with someone that I knew. His name was Blake. He was friends with this guy. They were all sitting at a table that was off to the side, and I was like, "What are y'all doing?" And everyone else goes, "He's guessing what we're thinking. We're all taking turns thinking different things, and he's guessing it." And I'm like, "Oh shit, a psychic? Like, oh dude." So I'm like, okay, this guy might be just, there's a trick to it. So I imagine a flame, and he guesses it in 2 guesses. And I was like, that's pretty neat. And so he goes off to the bathroom, and I like ask the people at the table, in a point with the outside of earshot of him, because he's in the bathroom by this point, and I'm like, do you guys think there's anything weird about this house or that hallway? And everyone else at the table that wasn't that dude was like, nah, whatever, I don't think so. He comes back, and I haven't told him anything about me as a child feeling the way I did. And he goes, yo, man, I think your house is haunted. That's the first thing he says. And I go, oh, ooh, okay. Well, before I say anything, I go, by what? By a guy that killed himself. And I was just like, whoa, that's way too specific. And so I'm starting to get chills like you were talking about. And then I just say very slowly, how did he kill himself? And he just looks at me and he goes, he hung himself. And I fucking just kind of was like, oh, like, no, like, oh God, there's no way, like, who told him? Like, I got kind of upset, you get upset about that. So fast forward a little bit more. And everybody left for that event, for that gathering of people. But a friend came over by herself. Well, actually, that's not true. A friend was going to come over by herself, and she ended up bringing a friend I had never met before, a coworker, I believe. Now, he's the only variable in this part of the story that I think could have caused a more realistic anomaly to occur. I didn't know him very well, but we were explaining the concept of, like, unscrewing a flashlight halfway to see if you can get some form of communication. They were doing it on certain ghost hunting shows to see, before they had devices that could potentially pick up, like, these electromagnetic readings and spikes, they were like, let's use a flashlight and unscrew the bulb halfway, and maybe it'll flicker at yes and nod at no or whatever. So I'm saying, well, let's try that with the hallway. And so I'm like, well, turn off all the lights, we sit on pillows, and we sit in the hallway. And we did it. It was way too creepy. And all the doors were closed. You could hear anything. So I told everyone, when I ask, we're all going to, like, be quiet when I ask a question, but I could still hear breathing. So I was like, everyone, I'm going to ask a question. We all hold our breath. And so I started untwisting the light bulb, and it was flickering. And I was like, hello, blah, blah, blah. And then I twisted a little bit more, and it, like, went out completely. And I was like, can you turn the light back on? And everyone held their breath, and you just hear a guy go, no. And we all stood up, and we're like, let's get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here. And it's what, people portray as the word nope. Just nope. It was one of those moments. Where actually, I forget his name, but our old friend who lived in that area called me, and he was like, hey, you were trying to call me? And I was like, yeah, and a ghost just fucking talked to us in my grandparents' house, and he was like, oh, no, dude, that shit's scary, don't tell me that. But, no.
Yeah, the creepy, man, that old creepy shit. And, okay, so... definitely a good story, and while we're in the vibe, I'm just gonna, there's a subreddit called R Skinwalkers, and I'm gonna read a story from R Skinwalkers, and I'm gonna give this credit to Morgan A2545 as the poster of this. I'll read it as creepy as I can. This takes place around Christmas. It was cold outside, but I was asked to walk my dog, so I did. I heard clicking that my dog makes when he walks. My dog is going to the bathroom at the time. I was horrified. I knew this was wrong, but I had to turn around. When I turned around, I saw the biggest thing I've ever seen in my life. I yanked on my dog's leash and I run towards the house, which is far down the road. I still hear the clicking noise. It's coming from behind me, but it's not my dog. I know that for sure. My grandmother's house is right by my house, and at the time my grandmother was over at my house, but the lights turned on outside revealing it, I'm assuming he's talking about the figure, laughing at me in my own father's voice. Then running behind me again, I hear the noise of my mother saying, come back, I really want to play. Almost getting to my driveway, I hear it saying, no matter where you go, it's going to be easy to find you. Just stop now. My parents heard me screaming, and they run outside. I get into the house, and we all hear voices and screeching on the windows. My grandmother brings me to my room and tells me what is happening. She says skinwalkers will connect with the human until they get what they want. At this point, I'm terrified. She still goes on to talk about what they are and what they do to you. Now 3 weeks later, we still hear scratching at the windows. It's still just as scary as it was tonight, or as it was the night that all this happened. We're looking to move, but no, wherever you go, it follows.
Despite the fact that It Follows is the name of a fucking movie I saw recently.
Did you like the movie It Follows? I thought it was great.
Dude, that movie scared the fuck out of me, dude.
It's fucking awesome.
It did a good job, despite sex being a very major role in that movie. It was like a transmitted ghost virus. It's interesting. Another thing, though, I want to tell a real story that kind of reminds me of Skinwalkers, dude. But it's about the Greys. We can go to aliens, but the creepy aliens, the Greys. I have a lot of weird little notes about them. And one night,
Let me turn my lights off.
So, this is a true story as well. And this has to do with sleep paralysis. I never get sleep paralysis. And this is the one time I've had sleep paralysis my entire life. So I was house sitting for someone. I don't need to mention their name because it's not important. I was house sitting for someone who lived next to a good friend of mine and a neighbor at the time. I didn't have anything better to do, and I'm an alien fanatic, so I watched documentaries. I watched one called Mirage Men that was about the misinformation campaign that is being led against the disclosure of extraterrestrial knowledge, so it's the realistic side of it. And then I watched one that just had all of the people that had been fed the misinformation claiming what they thought they knew about the alien abductees and all the people that thought they were going through hypnosis sessions. Well, no matter what I saw was, if any of it's true, these extraterrestrials, these almond-eyed, gray-skinned, Zeta Greys as they're called, they're abducting humans against our will and experimenting on us because of an alleged pact our government made after that Roswell crash that I mentioned. They're like, you can abduct a certain portion of people and we get a certain portion of technology and we don't go to war. And that's allegedly what happened. And so I believed it enough that night that I was really upset at the Greys. And I literally was walking to my buddy's house to just go hang out with him, right next to the house I was taking care of. After having watched that documentary, I went back to my home, got some supplies, and went back to my buddy's house to hang out. Well, I fell asleep on his couch, but right before I got there, I was in this field by myself that I had gotten deja vu. The first time I went to that field, I got deja vu, and I felt like I had a dream about that field. And then later on, I'm walking in it at night, and I just felt like I was being watched. And I had just remembered all the documentaries, and I thought about the Greys, and I was like, I just sent out this energy of like, y'all are cowards. You guys are cowards. If you really are this powerful and you haven't contacted us, you need to come out and show yourself, you fucking cowards. Like, how dare you take advantage of the human race for being so simple-minded that we can't conceive you, or perceive you, whatever. So I fall asleep on this couch, and the first time I ever get sleep paralysis is me having a dream of laying on the couch. The lights are on, and I can't move. And there's two tall, gray aliens with black eyes staring down at me, standing at the foot of the couch. This is a true story of a dream, a sleep paralysis episode, the one and only one I had. And the weird thing about the dream was if I looked directly at them, it was like I couldn't see them immediately. It was like they were shifting in and out of visibility because they had this kind of cloaking field on. It was in patches though, because it was like a dream state, so I could see through patches of it, and they were looking at each other like they were telepathically communicating, and then they looked back at me like they were trying to figure out what the fuck to do with me. And in the whole time I'm trying to get up from laying down and turn over, because that's the cure to sleep paralysis, is turning over to wake up. And I was like, and then like I woke up in just like a cold sweat, and the light was off, and no one was around, and I just had to go back to sleep. Because as far as I know, that didn't happen.
Yeah, man. That's no sleep paralysis is no joke, man. I've experienced it myself. I will say, okay, so I've got to piss like crazy. Um, we're at 2 hours and 23 minutes. I think that this is maybe how we should end each of these late night podcasts. So maybe I'll save my sleep paralysis story until next time, until tomorrow night or something like that, and I'll tell it tomorrow. Because I think I was about 5 years old. The only time I've ever experienced sleep paralysis, and it was very fucking creepy. It sticks with me today. It's one of the only memories I have as a 5-year-old. So I think it's interesting that I think I remember 3 things from when I was 5, and one of them was my sleep paralysis episode, or what I interpret as my sleep paralysis episode. Anyhow.
Well, do you want to tell that as the last story, or do you want to tell that tomorrow night?
I say let's save it till tomorrow. I think it'll be good. We can do a little cliffhanger, and that'll be tomorrow's edition for sure.
Nice.
All right, man. Well, to anyone watching this in the future, thank you so much for hanging out with us or watching this. Maybe join us the next time we stream. I think we're gonna, I'm gonna do a little research on how to make the podcast better and better as we go. And we'll do. I think the next episode we'll do a little more research and have maybe some videos pulled up and some other stuff that we can run live as we're doing this.
Nice.
All right, man. Well, it's been a great night. It has been a lot of fun as usual, and I say we keep doing this, keep having fun, and. I'm gonna close us out with a little Black Dahlia murder, because I think that's pretty fitting for what we've got going on tonight. And once again, I don't think they'll come. So thank you so much for joining us. Once again, still don't know what the podcast is going to be called. We'll figure that out someday.
Figure it out.
Andrew, thank you so much for joining me tonight, man. Let's continue this. If you want to do another one tomorrow in the afternoon, we'll have fun with that. Thank you to everybody who watched with us tonight, who's watching us in the future, and who stay with us. Come out.
Sincerely.
Love you guys. Thank you so much. Everyone have a good night.
Have a good night.